I began to realize there is a place I'd really like to know a little bit more about, and that's called Alaska. Now, why? Well, because think about those animals and those plants in Alaska that survive that harsh, brutal climate. What is it about those creatures and creations that enables them to survive? The polar bear has hair that to us it looks white. It's that white bear, but it really doesn't have color. It is clear. It's a translucent hair. Why does it look white? Well, it's the way light is refracted through it. As a matter of fact, the polar bear knows that it has...
Like many creatures that live in the cold, they have a relatively large body size and a somewhat roundish body size. Why is that helpful? Well, in the cold, the loss of body heat is important. So the less surface of your body that you have relative to the total mass of your body, the better.
Let's talk about the moose, one of my favorite animals. The moose is the largest member of the deer family, and it's the second largest living land animal that's in North America, and only the bison is ahead of it. A large bull moose can stand about 7 feet tall, close to 7 feet tall at its shoulders, and it can weigh 1,500 pounds, and they're famous for those great big huge antlers that they have on their head, palmated antlers. They can weigh up to 80 pounds. Hey, how'd you like to go around carrying 80 pounds on your head? Not me. And it can be 6 feet from tip to tip on a large bull moose's antlers. And did you know that those antlers are the fastest growing organ that's in an animal? From start to finish, it can be as small as 3 to 5 months, and they're completely developed. One of the fastest growing organs of any animals is the antlers.
During the winter, if the temperature gets up to around 23 degrees Fahrenheit, most of us, we'd be freezing, shivering, but a moose actually is panting at 23 degrees Fahrenheit because of how much retention of body heat there is through that coat layer.
Not the moose. God's designed the moose so that it has muscles in its nose and fatty tissue, and when it's feeding under the water, those nostrils will close to keep water from getting up its nose.
As soon as the air pressure in the water is more than the air pressure in the air, the nostrils close. They have flaps that automatically close. So it can be down under there eating, its nose flaps close, and it doesn't have to think, oh my, I don't have my nose flaps closed. They just close automatically with the difference in pressure. When it brings its head up out of the water, they open up and it breathes. It can stay under the water for a pretty good time. And matter of fact, some moose actually submerge, and they will have their whole body under the water to eat. As the moose is eating, it reminds me of a man called Gideon in the Bible. And Gideon was told by God to get his troops down to a certain number. How did he end up doing that? Ultimately, the men went down to get a drink, and he took the men that kept some of them just put their head in the water. The ones that he kept, I think there were 300,
Well, a red fox, first of all, it's an adorable little creature. And the red foxes tend to hunt mice. During the winter months, though, where they're living, you have several inches of snow, sometimes 18, maybe 2 feet of snow that you have built up, and the mice are scurrying around underneath the snow. So how is this fox going to be able to find the mice that it needs to survive? Well, the fox has very good hearing. They can detect even just the slightest movement of a mouse underneath several inches of snow. So they have to have the structures connected in such a way in their ears that can amplify the sound enough to be able to hear that. We could not hear something like that. And you can actually see them when they're hunting. They'll kind of tilt their head. They'll turn their ears towards the direction like they're honing in, trying to find exactly where that mouse is. And they have an interesting way that they'll then find that mouse. They'll actually jump as high as they can in the air and do a headfirst dive into the snow.
It is using Earth's magnetic field. Researchers are telling us that the fox is the first animal that they've discovered that uses Earth's magnetic field to help find its prey and to find the distance to the prey.
Okay, researchers have looked at success rates of these foxes catching mice, and they have studied numerous foxes and several different pouncing attempts and calculating what direction, first of all, they were facing. Were they successful? Were they unsuccessful? And what they found out is that in the area that they were doing this research, if they were facing northeast, which was towards the magnetic North Pole, if they were facing in that specific direction, they were successful about 73% of the time at catching that mouse. If they were going the completely opposite direction of that, a 180 turn, and hunting, pouncing on that mouse, they were about 60% successful. But what they noticed, if they weren't lined up on that axis, only about 18% of the time did they actually catch a mouse. So what they've concluded is that they can actually detect and use the magnetic field of the Earth kind of like a range finder. So they can hone in and know exactly where that mouse is going to be, so they can determine what their trajectory needs to be, and they can pounce and be successful over 70% of the time. That's an amazing thing. How can an organism, we can't imagine that. None of us can detect.
Not mine.
It's not me.
It's in your backpack.
This isn't mine. This is Uncle Eli's.
Dr. Browning? Is he missing? Like, kidnapped?
Yesterday he was acting really strange. What does that mean?
You gotta meet Harrison.
Who?
I mean, that's like epic movie material.
I don't like this, Mom.
You know what time it is now, don't you? It's time for you and old Cooney here to get some sleep, okay?
We'll have to sleep in the car for tonight, but tomorrow I'll find something better.
I'm scared.
Honey, it's okay. Mommy's here.
I heard a noise.
Hi, Spokane Police Department. Ma'am, can I ask what you're doing parked here?
Well, we had a little trouble and we couldn't find a place to stay for the night, but we'll only be here one night.
Okay, well, I'm sorry. The ordinances don't allow you to stay in the park. Is there another place you can stay?
No.
Okay, well, ma'am, it's not safe for you and your children here. Have you heard of the Ogden Hall Women's Shelter? Would you be willing to call them and see if they could take you in for the night? Okay, would you go to the nearest phone and give them a call? Okay, you and your children be safe. Thank you.
Hello, Ogden Hall. Can I help
I'm
you?
stranded with my kids and I need a place to stay.
How many of you are there?
I have 3 kids.
Tell me about your situation.
My husband and I had a big fight and I tried to sleep in my car, but the police told me I had to leave the park. Do you have room for me? I have no place else to go. No. At a park. Okay. Yeah. Okay, bye.
Christy? I got the money. I'll pick you up first thing tomorrow morning.
Billy.
Oh, Christy,
Billy
you
is
better
such
go.
a bull.
Okay.
See you later, guys. Bye.
This isn't happening to me. It's so unreal, it just can't be. Please tell me I'm dreaming. Tell me not to shout. Why is there no answer? No easy way out. Just a long, hard struggle down a long, dark road.
Dear Journal, my expectations were fully met as I got my first glimpse of the St. Joe River Valley. Like diamonds on velvet, the glistening water is embraced by lush green banks and rock outcroppings. Each curve in the road affords a new look, each one a painting in itself. The pastoral sweetness fills my senses to overflowing. Scenes of farm life take me back to past generations. The drive from St. Mary's to the tiny town of Calder prepares me in its own way for my week-long stay at Shiloh Guest Ranch. Shiloh means peace or rest giver, and when we arrived, I felt it deeply. Our hosts, Norm and Barb, fairly glowed with the peace of God. Our souls touched immediately. Their gracious manners, calm, humble spirits, and tender concern seemed to welcome us like an old feather bed. The tensions I unknowingly was still carrying melted away like icicles in springtime.
Shiloh Ranch is a small Christian guest ranch. We're deliberately designed for 1 to 4 families.
We're told the St. Joe is 120 miles long and has all 6 classes of water, from raging white water to long, calm stretches without a ripple. The view from Mount Baldy was breathtaking, well worth the bouncy ride up in our Suburban. The distant ranges, without a sign of civilization, satisfied our thirst for wilderness experience. Our hike to Crystal Lake took us through forest and steep alpine meadows. The wildflowers danced at our feet and seemed to cheer us on. Our reward was a fantastic view of the lake and the rocky cliffs surrounding it. On the way back, we stopped in the tall grass where Norm loves to share a story.
Where would that be? Okay, it's really the same place. So now talk to me.
Her body, strength, and art. In the hidden chamber, the dance begins. Conception, the music of heartbeats in 22 days. A human form revealed at 8 weeks. Fingerprints in 12 weeks. The intimate dance of mother and child. Mysterious, beautiful.